Dame Pauline, thank you for agreeing to talk to us today about the Strategic Defence Review and its rolling out and implementation across the British Defence Industry, British Armed Forces, and trying to engage the British public. I know you have strong views on how important it is to get the British public behind UK defence and the Defence Review.
Well, I do think it's important. And it's important because we face an increasingly dangerous and threatening world where, unlike the years that we've experienced since the fall of the wall and the fall of the Soviet Union and the German wall coming down, we now face a direct threat to our homeland. The Russians do have both the intention and the capability, and one can't trust they don't have the intention, to do us harm. So we do have to think very hard about defending ourselves. We've taken a long peace dividend, and we have reduced the size of our armed forces, and we have capabilities now which are still good, but not wholly relevant to the situation we face. So we've got to do something about it. This defence review, goes a long way, I think, to putting us on the road that we need to follow, increasing our capabilities, and also involving a wider section of the public directly, actively, in not only defence, but also in the resilience of our own domestic society and our daily lives. And we are going, all of us, to have to be more involved. So what does that mean? It means that people have to believe. They have to believe in the worthwhileness of doing this. My concern is that while I'm quite certain that the government is right, to have made this a priority, it does mean that money is going to have to be spent, which does mean that other priorities in people's lives are going to have less resource devoted to them. They also, therefore, have to understand and be convinced that this is something that they need to support, they need to be involved in. So hence my concern that the government that talks to and debates with and is willing to take the challenge from the general public as to why this is really something very important for the country. I know they have a good cause. They have to convince the general public that this is a good cause that they want to support too.
I mean, is there an issue though with, we've had 35 years of the peace dividend, the wars of choice, the expeditionary warfare, actually convincing the public and skeptical members of parliament and also parts of the government bureaucracy, the treasury, that it's really important to invest in defence because war might come to the streets that we live on. That's a difficult ask in the current environment.
Well, it is a difficult ask because it doesn't seem obvious that is the case. But the world has changed a lot. The Russians are actually at war in Europe. This is our continent, and we have a war on it already. And they have made noises of a kind which suggests that they're ready actually to have another bite in other bits of Europe. Secondly, they've aligned themselves with the Chinese, and they are now blocked together with the North Koreans. This is 3 nuclear powers hostile to the Western allies. There's Iran making, as we've just known, a lot of trouble. So this is why the world is generally more dangerous, and actually there's a direct threat to us, both in terms of what could happen militarily, but also what happens on a daily basis, which is inspired and advanced by the Russians, which is the cyber attacks we face, this disinformation, the lying that goes on through social media. These are real threats to both the quality of our life and our safety. So I come back to the fact that really it's not so much that it's not obvious. It's not obvious that it's going to happen tomorrow, but it is now something that we have to face in order to prevent it happening. So this is what we have to accept: is that we don't want to go to war, but if we're not going to go to war, we have to make deterrence work, and we have to make the prevention of war also effective.
We saw in the COVID crisis about 4 years ago, great deal of volunteering, public-spirited behaviour, lots of people getting involved in voluntary organisations. Yet we also saw really bad behaviours for part of our political class, the corruption, all that kind of stuff. And it makes ordinary people sceptical when their leaders tell them.
cynical.
Yeah. And how do we get our leaders to show leadership?
Well, our leaders have to be honest, and they have to be honest both in terms of what they say to the public, but also how they behave. And I won't try to defend. I am a member of the Conservative Party, and I won't try to defend some of the things that happened during the Conservative Party period. And we would certainly want to, be allowed by the electorate to be responsible again for the safety and welfare of the country. But if we're going to do that, we do actually have to provide leadership. We have to explain, and we those are people who understand these subjects. They do have to explain what's important. They have to be willing to answer the challenge, because there are, you've got to be able to defend your position. You've got to be able to answer the awkward questions. And above all, I think people do have to be willing to accept, and this isn't something I think that's easy, but willing to accept that other things which they regard as priorities and which are priorities for them have to share the resources available to us with an increase in defence.